I wanted to make a very brief and final video on this, barring anything else actually happening, because I'm very happy that Johnny Depp actually basically won his defamation lawsuit. Now, here's the thing with this. There are always like very militarized fans of any of these people. I would not put myself in any of those categories or groups. I liked Johnny Depp in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like, I love those movies. And very old here in terms of a lot of people probably haven't seen this, but the original 21 Jump Street. Thought he killed it. Really good job. I haven't actually seen a lot of Johnny Depp movies that a lot of people really love. I'd like to, but I was just never really had the opportunity to see a lot of them. So I wouldn't call myself a Johnny Depp mega fan, and I certainly would not call myself an Amber Heard mega fan before or after this. The investment I have in this whole trial is personal and also conceptual. And what I mean by that is that I personally, I wouldn't call myself like a victim of abuse, but I was in a very emotionally abusive relationship that I could tell was starting to turn physical, and I left, and I'm not saying like I had the strength to leave and a lot of people didn't. It's just that's how I chose to handle that relationship. A lot of people do what Johnny Depp did and has said he did in this trial and stick around and try and fix things, thinking you can fix the person or fix the relationship or that things will get better. And usually that's done from a very good place, but a lot of times people, even though they can change, they can't just be fixed by you, right? And it's sad to say, but it is reality. There are also a lot of people who end up in very abusive relationships who have nowhere to go, or who have been isolated by that person very slowly over time to the point where they don't have other connections or friends or methods of living. Maybe they live with that person and it would be very hard to get out of that situation. Maybe it's parents and it's not even a romantic relationship. It is a familial one. Parents who hit their kids and it's not taken seriously by police or not actually investigated, things like that. I think very much too often abuse victims are ignored, or abuse survivors, if you want to call it that, because this is kind of like one of those things that a lot of people have their own words they like to use to describe it, and if other people don't use those words, sometimes it comes off rude, but really to me it's just kind of whatever. For another example on this is my wife, who personally was in a couple of relationships before our relationship that did turn physically abusive. In different ways. Now, some of those were also mentally abusive as well, and she got out of those situations, when she could. The one was very easy to get out of, and the other one was not so easy due to isolation and some other stuff that I don't want to get fully into since I don't want to open myself up to a defamation case. But I will say that with her, the police were contacted more than once, and it was never taken seriously at all. It was kind of a thing like, well, there's not enough marks here for us to do something, or, well, you must have made it up, a lot of stuff like that. It's crazy to me how common those stories actually are with law enforcement or with social services for people who are, children who deal with this kind of stuff, or all of the above. There's also a lot of times when people report something and then they get hit worse afterwards. I saw that as well in the education system where there were times where someone tried to intervene in good faith to stop abuse, and then it wouldn't be taken seriously by authority, and then that abuse would ramp up after, kind of like a how dare you report me to X, Y, and Z, and then it's taken out on children. This kinds of stuff happens a lot of times. It's not just in romantic relationships, it's in all kinds, and it's ridiculous to me that in the 21st century, this is something that still happens. This seems to me like something that should have gone out the door with like the Crusades and things like that, like way back then. There is obviously an alternative side of these things where people are afraid to discipline their kids or afraid to ever use tough love in a relationship, stuff like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that there are so many people that just purposely gaslight, manipulate, hit, kick, push, and hurt their significant others or family members and get away with it. That's why this case was so important to me, because to me, and to apparently most people who watched the trial, including the jury, the evidence that Johnny Depp submitted of having been hurt by Amber Heard and not being the one hurting her, it's kind of hard because hurt. That evidence was much more compelling and substantial than Amber Heard's evidence of being the one who was being hurt. Now, I think when we get into these conversations, a lot of times people strawman this very heavily, and they try to go down the road of Johnny Depp's no saint. He did drugs, and it's okay, so did Amber. Oh, well, he admitted that he accidentally headbutted her. It's okay, well, she admitted she purposely hit him on tape. We can play this game all day. I've noticed that the hardcore Amber Heard supporters are usually very misguided, very, 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 very liberal people. I don't mean just liberal, and I've said this 100 times before, not to drag my views into it. I genuinely think, if we were back during JFK administration, I'd probably call myself liberal. But, I'm not talking about that, a moderate person who has a good head on their shoulders and can think and can form an opinion. I'm talking about people who are very blinded by ideology. People who are very blinded by Me Too. People who are very blinded by Believe All Women. People who are very blinded by power struggle, psychology. People who think men are in a hierarchical, patriarchal position above women in society, so they must be the abusers and women must be the victims. I personally think that's very belittling towards women. I think it's very belittling towards LGBTQ people because they're often seen automatically as a victim in any power dynamic situation. I don't think that has to be the case. I think there are a lot of strong women and LGBTQ people. I guess a lot of people don't think that, but they don't know they don't think that. And I think that it's kind of ridiculous because a lot of people are very much in the camp of, well, Amber is a woman, Johnny is a man, she must have been the victim automatically. And again, I think that's belittling and ridiculous, and I think it boils down situations to black and white morality and power dynamics that are never that clear in nature, nor are they any more clear in the complicated world we live in now, in society, as the Joker meme would say. It's important that this happens, that people start getting called out for things like false accusations, okay? This is very important. I've talked about this story before. Friend in college had his whole life ruined because of this. Kicked out of his major, kicked out of his college. His ex-girlfriend claimed that he assaulted her in the not PG way, okay? And the police proved it didn't even happen, all right? This was actually a case where the police did their job right. They proved that it didn't happen. They proved that these allegations were false. He could have taken it further towards a defamatory case, actually. I was going to say libel, but defamatory case, but he didn't have money to do so. He was a struggling college student who just got kicked out of college, and the college board and deans, they didn't give two shits about it, because to them, the girl was the victim, even if the police said no. Which makes me wonder why they even, cooperated with police, but maybe they didn't. I don't know the details of that. And so this person had to go switch colleges, basically change majors to somewhere else, almost had a permanent mark on their legal record, even though they didn't do anything. And these accusations are very powerful. I would almost argue they are attempted homicide sometimes. You are trying to ruin. When you make false accusations, you're trying to ruin someone's life. And sometimes you're trying to drive them towards suicide. That seems to be a very mentally ill thing that some of these people do, is I hate you. I'm going to get you to take care of yourself and remove yourself as a factor from the world because I can't legally do it. So I'm going to turn your life into hell, ruin it, ruin you, and then you'll be gone. And if you're not gone, you're so far irrelevant that no one will ever hear from you again. It is one of the most sadistic, evil things that people can do. And these need to start being called out. And on the other side of it, abuse victims need to start being listened to. You cannot look at someone and say, that person's too fat. They can't be abused. They weigh too much. That person's too tall. They can't be abused. Well, that person can't be abused because they are a woman or a man or a child that's bigger than normal children, so they could hit back. I don't know, any of this stuff. It's all crap. It's all crap. And people do it all the time with like labeling what can and cannot be on the receiving end. Or like with my wife's example, that the bruises weren't good enough that she got. The bruises were too small. So therefore, like, this must be an isolated incident that happened one time. I would say instigated by her, like, to be on the receiving end of it. That's a real thing the police said. This kind of stuff needs to go away, okay? 21st century. Like, we're hitting the point where we have hoverboards. They're not real. They're not very good, but they exist. You know, that's something. We have electric cars, and we can't take care of people in society. We can't prevent abuse, and we can't punish it, or we can't recognize it when it happens. It's a joke. It's ridiculous. This needs to happen because people need to start understanding that anyone can be on the receiving end or the giving end of this kind of stuff, and that the only way to change it is for everything. When there are claims, they need to be investigated, okay? You don't ignore them. They are investigated, but we don't immediately throw the book at someone either. Johnny Depp, he had these claims levied against him, and immediately there were people who assumed he was the bad guy. On the other hand, there were people who immediately assumed he was the good guy. But you know what? At least that lines up more with innocent until proven guilty. And that's a good thing. You investigate those things. If you have a home where a child is apparently being abused, you remove that child from that home for a little bit, figure it out, put them back. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Or you send observers, those kinds of things. If you have a relationship, like a romantic relationship where one person claims to be being abused, you actually have them medically examined. You talk to them, have them talk to a therapist, somebody who can tell if they're lying. You know, things like this. There are options here. I'm not talking polygraph or something unreliable. I'm talking subject that person to questioning on it. Subject the other people involved to questioning on it. Medically examine it. Look at the home. Look at where these people live. Actually do your damn job and your research, both police and media. Don't just jump on the bandwagon. There are so many people who jumped on the bandwagon with Johnny Depp. Warner Bros. Just completely giving him like the middle finger and firing him. And then having the fucking audacity today, when I recorded this, to come out with like a pro Pride Month post about how they stand with minority communities and people who need them. Fuck you. No, you don't. You don't stand with anybody except for making $1. That's what it's about. You got rid of Johnny because you knew that there was the potential you could lose money on it. So you said, fuck him, got rid of him, then you replaced him. And the reason that you posted the Pride Month thing is because, oh man, gotta get the money from those sweet gays. That's how the corporations see it. They don't post it because they see love. They don't post it because they care about you. They post it because, fuck you, give me money. That is what all of this is about with these corporations like them, and Disney, in my opinion, as well, with the Pirates of the Caribbean stuff. And then crawling back with their tail between their legs when they realize, oh gee, we were wrong, sorry about that. It is a joke. Everybody is a joke in these situations. The law enforcement, the media, these companies who employ people and they immediately throw them under the bus when the first thing happens. This happens with allegations at work too. I've seen this happen a dozen times before, where someone will say, this person touched me inappropriately. That person will lose their job without even a full investigation. And then meanwhile, you have shit going on at like Blizzard Activision with the Cosby Suite, and like people just getting destroyed and no one cares. There is no middle ground. It's like everyone is a lunatic. There's no sane response to it. It's either complete ignorance and ignoring of the issue, or like, hey, let's assume this person is Lucifer himself, cast him to hell. Neither of these are good ways to deal with anything. Like most things, most answers in life lie in the middle. They are tempered, they are researched, they are thought out and implemented. They're not knee-jerk reactions to this person must be innocent and this person must be guilty. Because you know what? Those kinds of things end people's lives. They really do. Those kinds of things end their careers. They get those people to end their lives. Those kinds of things create extremism and extremists. You see this too all the time with someone being declared a racist or a misogynist or whatever, and then the only people that will take them in are the racists and the misogynists, and so they go further and further and further down that road instead of actually being educated. This is what happens when we ostracize people without all the facts. We create these things. We create monsters. I cannot believe that Johnny Depp had the self-control to not hit Amber Heard back when she did some of this shit. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not that good of a person. Somebody's hitting me, I'm probably knocking them the fuck out and going to jail. So this guy is basically a saint compared to what I would have done in this situation, and compared to what most tough people would have done, people who think they're tough, or people who think I would have just left, would have done in this situation. This man tried to stay. He tried to fix his relationship. He tried to make his relationship better than the one of his family that he talked about before. And, there were mistakes made, definitely, but it is such a poor faith argument to act like, well, he was in the wrong too, so therefore it's fine. This kind of victim shaming shit just needs to go. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the companies profiting off of the back of it and profiting off of the back of different communities while ignoring victims of abuse or survivors of abuse and all this other stuff. It sickens me. It all sickens me. I'm glad that he won. I don't care that he lost one counterclaim thing. She's still going to be forced to pay like $15 million. Actually, if you look into it, it could be even more than that with legal fees and other stuff. So this is not going to go well for her. There are some indications that she may have committed perjury, in my opinion, in different trials as well. We'll see what happens with that. Usually that isn't even investigated or covered because a lot of times they don't take the time to deal with it. I don't know. This kind of stuff is important, though. It's important to happen. It's important for people to see. And I don't know. There's going to be a lot of people who have a dissenting opinion on this, and that's fine. I couldn't care less. Go ahead, run your mouth in the comments. I probably won't read it anyway. I read a lot of comments, but I miss a lot too. Usually they get filtered out by mods, so have at it. And it's sad that there's a lot of people that you can't convince of this, because just like anything, there's a lot of people who will never see reason ever in their lives. Have a fantastic day. As always, everyone, stay shui. It's nice to actually use your brain and come to conclusions yourself instead of just burying it so deep up the ass of an ideology that you can't even think outside of that.